I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, first up we have the acceptance and correction of minutes from the 4/10/2023 public and non-public meeting.
I'll make a motion, we accept the 4/10/2023 public and non-public minutes with corrections if need be.
Second.
Motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Anyone have any corrections or comments? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, motion passes.
You got-
From this, no, I was in public and non-public.
You weren't here for non-public?
Yeah, I was, just not for the hearing.
Oh, okay.
All right, next up is announcements. We have an announcement, the Glen Lake Boat Launch and Waterfront Area Ordinance. This is a reminder, the parking restriction dates for the Glen Lake Boat Launch and Waterfront Area Ordinance are in effect beginning May 15th between the hours of 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. Parking along Elm Street in the area of the boat launch is restricted to Goffstown residents only who display a resident transfer station sticker on their vehicle. Stickers for residents can be obtained from the transfer station during normal business hours, Tuesday through Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 3 p.m. The designated trailer parking only area will remain open to anyone with a trailer attached to their vehicle without restriction year-round. There's a no trespassing from 9 p.m. to 5 a.m. at the Glen Lake Boat Launch and Waterfront area. Alcoholic beverages are prohibited at the Glen Lake waterfront along with any glass bottles. Glen Lake is a carry-in, carry-out facility. The above restrictions are posted at the Glen Lake Board Launch and Waterfront area for convenience. I just also would like to note, if you are requesting a sticker from the transfer station, you will need your vehicle registration with your Goffstown address on it.
I'd also like to mention this, there is a fine if you park on, if you don't have a sticker and you're parking along Elm Street.
That's correct. Yep. So we have a few minutes. Danielle, would you like to get started on the town administrator's report, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'll give you a minute to turn to your meeting list. It's halfway through. I apologize not having the page numbers on there. We reprinted. Okay, so tomorrow there are no meetings. Wednesday, there's 7 p.m. meeting for conservation in this room.
I have that.
Thursday, 7 p.m. meeting for the planning board in this room.
I have that also.
Okay, Friday, no meetings. Next week, there's no meetings on Monday. Tuesday, May 2nd, you have a Village Bridge Ad Hoc Committee meeting at the Parks and Recreation Center at 6:30.
I have that also.
7 p.m. Zoning Board of Adjustment here in Town Hall, room 106. Who's our zoning?
That's,
There isn't
We don't
one.
have anybody that does
There isn't
zoning.
one.
yeah, no,
Oh,
we don't
that's
have a
correct.
zoning room.
Sorry. Wednesday at 6 p.m., the Economic Development Committee is meeting in room 106. Library is meeting Wednesday at 6:30 p.m.
I have that.
Okay. And there are no meetings Thursday or Friday. On your consent agenda, we have employee status reports for department head wage adjustments. There are 2 adjustments per contract. Deputy Fire Chief resignation, a DPW truck driver unsuccessful completion of probationary period, police dispatcher resignation, code enforcement successful completion of probationary period. We do have 2 new additions, a police officer new hire and a firefighter new hire. Both came in today. The wetlands and non-site specific permit, that's regarding the turnaround at Upton Lane. It's officially listed under map 36, lot 38. Needs a signature of the chair. Letter to the Department of Safety regarding a request for broadband mapping that requires the signature of the chair. A proclamation for Keep Goffstown Beautiful Week that needs the signature of the entire board that recognizes April 23rd to April 30th. Event permit applications for Bernardville Athletic Club for the Funny for Funds event on May 13th, beginning at 6 p.m. and going until midnight. Location is 15 Pershing Street. Total Image Running is doing a 10-mile 10K race May 13th. That's 8 a.m. to 11 a.m., beginning at Arms Park in Manchester, ends up entering through the Goffstown Rail Trail, and looping back down Danis Road and returning back to Manchester. And the Goffstown Garden Club is having a plant sale on May 20th, and that is on the town common from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Motion to approve?
Motion to approve the consensus agenda as presented this evening.
Because I have a question. On the code enforcement up here, isn't that for building inspector / code enforcement officer?
It is code enforcement officer, yes, building / zoning.
Okay, do that again. Code enforcement
Code enforce-
/ building
Code
/ zoning.
enforcement, yes.
All right, we have a motion by Mark, seconded by Jim. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed, abstained? Motion passes. All right, we will go ahead and pause on the administrator's report to open it up for public comment. So the time is now 6:10. If there's anyone here who wishes to speak at public comment, you can come forward. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment. All right, our next appointment is at 6:15, so Danielle, if you want to carry on, we can get a couple more of these done.
You have assessor's recommendation tonight, only one. It's an abatement application, approval recommended for map 18, lot 59.
Motion to approve the assessor's recommendation as presented.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Jim. Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Next in your packet, we have a budget transfer request from the accountant, our assistant finance director, regarding the quarterly benefit cash out to reimburse the wage lines. The financial impact of this quarter's transfer is $48,377.26 that is requested.
Make a motion to approve the budget transfer request or the reallocation of $48,377.26 from insurance benefits to the various wage lines as presented tonight.
Second.
Motion by Collis, seconded by Mark. Any questions or comments?
Do we have any backup on where it says reports and other associated documents?
It is, yep, the next
Solid.
page is corresponding, gives you a breakdown by GL account, and then the page following that gives you the breakdown by month as well.
Oh,
which-
by month, okay, that's what I thought. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Next, you have before you, the police department is submitting a memo. We have a tower lease that was being used by B&M. It was originally Pan Am Railroad, and then B&M used some space on the town tower. There was recently a reacquisition, and that's why we did not have a current contract. The contract previously expired December 31st of '22. After finding out who the new contact is and getting in touch with them, it is determined that CSX is the company that now owns those rights, and they're requesting, as they're just acquiring this company, to extend the contract for 1 year with a 5% price increase over the 2022 agreement amount to allow them to keep their equipment on the tower at this time. And that is recommended by the police department.
Do we have any history on how much this was increased in years prior? Just out of curiosity.
Yep, each time they do negotiate the contract. This one has typically been a one-year contract. Occasionally they did a 3-year.
Okay.
I believe the last one was like a 3% increase.
Any other questions?
There's no motion here, but I'm sure the motion is to extend a contract to CSX for the year 2023 with a 5% price increase over the 2022 agreement.
Yes, the amount is $2,559.48.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Mark. Any other questions? All in favor?
Aye.
And, oh, it's here. Found it, it's at the end. You're
It's a
right.
different one.
That's the next one.
Oh,
That's
that's
the
the
next
next
one,
one.
but the
But, all right,
6:50.
yeah, we'll take a break. We have an appointment with David Neiman from the Goffstown Conservation Commission. David, if you'd like to come on up.
That information's at the beginning of your packet, just after the announcement.
Good evening, everybody.
Hello.
Good to see
Good evening,
everybody
David.
again. I'm David Neiman from the Conservation Commission. And I'm here to give you an update on the conservation project we've been working on for the past year. It was about a year ago or so that I was in here and discussed the project, and at that time had asked for your support to write letters of support for some grant applications we were submitting, or PLC is submitting. So the Piscataqua Land Conservancy has been managing and running this project and wrote all the grants. Happy to report that those grants were indeed funded, as well as a couple of others. So actually a lot of funding has come in, and at the point now where we want to move to wrapping this up and getting to a closing, in which case we want to start the 4114A process on the select board side. So you did receive a handout that described it, along with some maps to help clarify some things. I do want to make one correction. I think I said it in the handout that it's a 73-acre project. 73 acres is total acreage of the land. I forgot to subtract the exclusion area. So it's actually a 69-acre easement. It's a long number, is 7 lots total that are covered by this. Map 10, Lot 3, Map 10, Lot 3-1, Map 11, Lot 1, Lot 1-3, Lot 1-4, Lot 1-5, Lot 1-6. The reason there's so many lots is that part of this project is to protect an agricultural field that previously was subdivided. And we're very happy to be able to reclaim it and conserve it, because this field has prime agricultural soil on it, which is a rare and valuable commodity in the state of New Hampshire in general, and Goffstown as well as the rest of the state. And this is prime farmland soil there. There is a soils map that shows that as part of the packet. The project really comes down to 2 major goals and aspects here. One is to protect a prime wetland, which is on the west side of the highway. It's one of our designated prime wetlands. And so we're protecting the buffer zone around it, the forests around it. The rest of the project is to help protect and preserve the working farm that exists there. And it is an active working farm that's run by the King family, managed by Dan King. So just shut me up if I start talking too much, because I know I have a tendency to do that. I don't know how much detail you want tonight as opposed to when we actually have the hearing. It was an expensive project, mainly because of the acquisition of that farmland that was previously up for subdivision, had been subdivided. And if it hadn't been acquired at this time, it was about to be sold to a developer, so it's sort of a last minute thing to be able, for the King family to be able to acquire it. That's what really drove the cost up, the value of that, and by selling the conservation easement, made it possible, feasible for them to acquire that. So the total budget, the total value of the whole project is almost $1 million. It's like $924,590. However, the family is very generously doing a bargain sale to discount it. Bargain sale of $325,000 discounted off of it. And so that leaves a total cost of the project for the the easement acquisition price and all the expenses of $599,590. This one got a little bit expensive on the expenses side because it got very complicated because there were so many funding sources that we went after. And the different funding sources, they have their different requirements, they have different documentation that they want. But in this case, there also had to be a partitioning of which part of the project is being protected by whom, which ended up resulting in having to create two separate easements. For example, well, the big difference is in the ARM grant that comes from the state, which is for wetland restorations and wetland protection. So that didn't really apply to the agricultural part of it, but it applies to protecting the prime wetland. Other grants like the LCHIP grant and Moose Lake grant and Merrimack Conservation Partners applies to the whole project. The result of that is to try to clarify that there's one map in your packet that shows the different use restrictions in the different areas of the project. So it's divided up into zone A, B, C, D, and E. A is the wetland, the prime wetland. B is the buffer zone that goes around it, and the immediate buffer zone. And C is a more extended buffer zone around that. So the ARM grant will contribute towards protection of zones A, B, and C. Whereas zones D and E in this map are really more for agricultural protection, agricultural and forestry, because you can see there's a mix of open fields and woodlands. And all the other grants apply towards that. So all said and done, I mean, PLC did a fantastic job with acquiring funding on this. Look at the LCHIP grant for $200,000, ARM grant for $270,000, the Merrimack Conservation Partners grant for $20,000, the Moose Lake grant for $24,000. From our conservation fund, the Conservation Commission, we're going to contribute $50,000 towards the project, about 8% of the total cost. So we consider this one pretty well leveraged. Local private donations are $5,590, and other private foundations and gifts total $30,000 to bring up the total for the revenue. So what I'm asking tonight is if the board will consider starting the 4114A process, putting out the request to conservation and planning for their comment and recommendation as the beginning of that process. And I will be making a presentation in both of those committees later this week to bring them up to date and so that they can make their recommendation.
Great. Thank you, David. This is a project you all have been working on for a long time, so it's exciting that it's to this point. Does anyone have any questions?
Need a motion?
Thank you, Dave. I'll make a motion that we initiate the 41-14A process to move this forward.
Second.
Motion by Collis, second by Pete. Any comments? Okay, all in favor?
Thank you, Dave.
Aye.
Aye. Great, motion passes. Danielle, do we have to schedule hearings? I see this on this section as well.
Yes, we do have two options before you on the cover memo for this one. You can either move forward with the regular meeting schedule, which you see shown in option 1. That would have the first hearing on June 8th, a second hearing on June 22nd, and then the vote would follow at the first meeting in July, on July 10th. Alternatively, if the board wishes, you could add a special meeting for the first hearing that could occur on 5/8, and then a second public hearing could occur on 5/22 with a vote on the land acquisition on June 1st.
Yes.
The add special meetings those would be adding special meetings to the select board?
It would be a meeting of the select board. The additional meeting would occur on June 1st, because that would typically, that particular month has 5 Mondays.
So the June meetings are our regular scheduled meetings.
The 6/8 and 6/22 are the regular meetings.
So my question to David, does that make a big deal?
I don't think it really makes a big deal. I mean, PLC was hoping to close by June 30th, but, you know, we all hope for things that
Another
don't
10
happen
days.
sometimes, so.
Yeah. It's
I
about a
don't see
month
it's a
apart.
huge difference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And also, I'm still waiting, they promised to have it in early May. I have to have copies of the actual easement documents so that we can verify that the executory interest is being correctly.
I'll make a
listed.
motion, we go with option one.
Second.
Okay, motion by Peter, seconded by Jim to schedule the hearings at our regularly scheduled meetings in June and July. Any questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. So we'll have the hearings posted, and that'll give you time to get the rest of your meetings out of the way, but we'll be looking forward to moving forward.
Yeah, that'd be great if I can do those other two this week, just because then that part of it's done. And since some of those other boards only meet once a month, it
Right.
gets even more complicated.
Okay,
Thank
great,
you for your work on this, David.
Yeah,
Thank
Thank you, thank you for all the help, appreciate it.
Okay. 6:30. Yep, Danielle, if you'd like to do the page, yes, please.
Okay.
Gotta find my way back here.
The next item that you had in the administrator's report was for tower and ground space licensing. This would be a license for the town to acquire space on a tower that is owned by New Hampshire One Rural Cellular Inc. The tower is located in Dunbarton, and it is in relation to the ongoing communications project. Before you have their proposed license. It looks like the whole license isn't in here, so I will get that to you. The license itself does include a license fee and revenue sharing in the amount of $210 per month that the town would be paying for the space. And it is a 5-year license agreement.
Have we had this before?
No, we had some space out there, but this is to expand the space for what we need.
Yes.
And with our new system, we can't use any of that new system to take care of any of this?
This is part of the new system. This is in order to reach the communications out to Dunbarton, because dispatch currently has a contract to provide those dispatching services to Dunbarton PD.
Okay.
Motion to approve the licensing agreement between the town of Goffstown and NH1 Rural Cellular as presented.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Mark. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Do the appointments.
Parks and Rec Commission met at
Yep,
419.
the volunteer
Yeah,
appointments.
and made the following recommendations to the select board. I was there.
Yes. Yes, the Parks and Recreation Commission did make 2 recommendations on at their meeting on April 19th. One, to reappoint Pamela Boyer as a member, and the second was to reappoint Kevin Daigle as a member. These would both be 3-year terms expiring March 31st of 2026.
Motion to appoint Pamela Boyer as a member to the Parks and Rec Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Peter, second by Collis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
And I'll abstain from that one.
Motion to appoint Kevin Daigle as a member to the Parks and Rec Commission with a term expiring March 31st, 2026.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And
We got 6:30.
yeah. Gotta find it. Where is it? Is that in the front?
It's after the pavement markings. Right before the town administrator's report.
Oh, gosh. We don't have the little tabs.
I know, I can't find it.
No handout for that one, Adam.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
Well, we should have the hearing, or is it just public? Okay, so we have a DPW public info session for the Center Street Bridge. Adam, do you want to? Hello.
Quick introduction, huh?
Yes, please, and if you could state your name for the record. Danielle, can we pull, or that extra chair right there on the end, if that works? Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, welcome. If you could both, or all three of you, just state your name for the record, please.
Sure. Adam Jacobs, DPW Director. Rick Wolf, Quantum Construction Consultant.
Giraldi, Quantum Construction Consultants.
Okay. So I'll give a quick introduction of why we're here tonight, and then I'll turn it over to Quantum. So as you probably remember, we've got on our capital improvement program for Department of Public Works, we have a 18-foot metal arch culvert on Center Street between Locust and Tibbetts Hill. That is on the state aid bridge program for 80% funding to be replaced. Currently, the state has us slotted for a 2025 construction year, but that usually just means that's the earliest we could start construction. In advance of that, they have, as part of the state aid program, they reimburse for design as well. And we've begun the preliminary engineering, and Quantum will talk about some of the results of that. That involves borings near the existing bridge to make sure that the foundation of the new bridge will be supported, and kind of a scoping effort to see what exactly the bridge project will entail. And as they'll discuss, we've got some ideas to improve that area, both from a traffic safety perspective, but also from the stream crossing itself. Right now it's constricted a little bit by the 18-foot culvert. And the reason this is coming up, it's not an imminent failure, it's not a red listed structure, it's big enough to be qualified as a bridge under the state program. So years ago, we had, when they were still accepting applications for the state aid program, we applied, knowing that at some point we're going to need to replace this. The invert is pretty rusted out. There are projects that you can rebuild an invert, but it still won't meet the hydraulic capacity of that water course. So if we had a large flood event, we could lose the road there. Obviously, it's a pretty critical road, so best to make sure that we do that on our timeline when we want to do it, and as we can get the 80% funding from the state, all the better. Those metal arch culverts tend to go from the bottom up, so as the invert washes out, similar to East Dunbarton Road, a couple of years ago, as the invert or the bottom of the pipe washes out, the fines that surround that embankment will drift down and get carried away by the rushing water, so it'll kind of have a multiplying effect, and then one day you'll just have a void at the top of the culvert, if you're lucky, and if you're not lucky, it's just gone. So we'd like to get ahead of this. This would be more of a traditional bridge span when we're all said and done, but that's definitely enough of yakking from me. I'll turn it over to Anna and Rick and let you know how we stand with the project now.
Thank you for that. Well, thank you. Good evening, and thank you for having us
Good
tonight.
evening.
They have a presentation they're going to share.
Sorry.
Do we need to hit the lights in the front?
I want to. He's got, he has a copy of it too, so we can kind of simulcast it.
Yeah.
Is this on or no?
It's-
Might be one more.
It's okay.
Yep, I see a blue light
Come
now.
on.
yeah.
I hear that. Oh, I see something.
It's coming up now.
Entertainment portion of the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, if we can manage to get this going.
There we go. Yeah,
It's
coming up
very
now.
dark.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll probably warm up
It's
a
just
little.
warming up, it'll
Yeah.
just take a second.
Okay, so once again, thank you for having us tonight to talk about the Center Street over Harry Brook Bridge Replacement Project. Great introduction, Adam. You covered a lot of our slides, so. So yeah, to get rolling here. So, try again.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It didn't quite work before. Is there a reason this is not working?
Yeah, space bar, Rick, it might go.
That's not cool.
Nope.
Full disclosure, this is my laptop, so if it's malfunctioning, it's the town's fault.
It really was
Yeah,
working
it was
before the
working
meeting?
perfectly.
Let's try this one thing we can
Want to sing something?
Well, in the
Give us
meantime, if you're here for the bridge, we do have
Yes.
sign-in sheets.
Thank you, Anna.
So if you can sign your name and address and email. There are also some comment sheets. So if, like after today, you realize you forgot to say something that you want to say, you can also grab a comment sheet and then you can just fold it up, put a stamp on it and send it to us.
Don't know what I did. We can use those little icons down there.
Okay. And not this.
Yep, I think
Okay.
so. Safe.
Okay.
Oh.
There we go. So, there we go. Who we are. So, Quantum Construction Consultants, QCC, we refer to ourselves because it is a mouthful. We are a civil and structural engineering firm located in nearby Concord. We specialize in these types of projects, the Municipal Bridge State Bridge Aid Program, doing municipal bridges and roadway designs. We're very experienced in this realm. We've done dozens of these types of projects through the State Bridge Aid project. State Bridge Aid Program, excuse me. So municipal bridges and state funding. It is funneled through the DOT, Bureau of Planning and Community Assistance. That is our friend C.R. Willicke up there, does a great job administering the program and the funds. This first bullet item is a little bit dated right now, but it says the program average is $6.8 million per year with an average project cost of $900,000. That has, with the recent challenges and pricing increases, the average project cost has gone up substantially. I would say it's probably closer to $1.5 million at this point in time. That's the bad news. The good news is with the federal funding that has been available as of late, the Bureau has been able to add additional funding to this program, so they are able to get more projects rolling, which is a great thing. As Adam mentioned, the funding source, 80% of the project costs, that is design and construction, are funded by the NHDOT, and the town funds the remaining 20%. The interesting thing, the program was actually closed for many years because they had way more bridges to replace than they had funding for, so the program was just recently reopened, and they're programming right now through 2032. So the fact that the town many years ago, I'm not sure when it was done, but had the foresight to get this bridge in the program has advanced it well ahead of other projects, so kudos to the town on that. The municipally managed bridge aid process. So what happens for us is basically, initially the town, when they get into the program, they are accepted and the funding for the project is approved. And then the DOT has a process by which the town has to acquire the subconsultants or select a subconsultant, and that is a qualifications-based selection. That was us, gratefully. And the portion of the project that we're in right now is the engineering study, and that's why it's in bold. We're preparing to close out the engineering study at this point. Anna actually will be digging into the results of the engineering study, sort of the nuts and bolts of the program here shortly. When the engineering study is complete, the next step for us would be the PPS&E, which is the preliminary plan, specifications, and estimate. So the DOT, this is a very specific program that is laid out for us. Then the steps are to follow are very specific. So after the PPS&E, they drop the preliminary and they call it final, and it becomes PS&E process. The bid phase for this project is fiscal year 2025 for Center Street, which DOT's, their fiscal year actually runs July 1. It doesn't run as what I consider my own personal fiscal year. They do it a little bit differently. And again, the reimbursement is 80%. Interestingly enough, so there's really two phases when the town puts in for their reimbursement. The first opportunity for the town to apply for their reimbursement for design costs actually occurs after the project is successfully bid and awarded. And at that same time, the town also gets 40% of the awarded bid cost in conjunction with their 80% design cost reimbursement. That once the project is awarded, actually before it is awarded, the town has to select a construction engineering consultant that is not Quantum to oversee the construction of the bridge. It used to be that we would design and oversee it in construction, but a recent change at the state level, actually the feds have been doing it for a long time, they do not allow that. And I think with the additional federal funding that is coming in a couple of years ago, DOT really started to push this different program where a separate qualified engineering firm oversees the construction of our design, and we oversee the construction of other designs. So at the completion of the project, there are very specific steps that have to be followed, and the final reimbursement occurs after the as-built drawings and all of the project accounting is accounted for, and that's when the town receives the construction engineering and construction administration reimbursement, and also the other 40% of the 80% construction costs. So the engineering study itself. Initially, one of the first things we do is we have a scoping session to establish the project purpose and need. The purpose of this project is to correct the structural and hydraulic deficiencies that we have, and also to provide safe year-round vehicular travel on Center Street. The need for the project is the corrugated metal plate arch has corrosion at the invert, and also importantly, the hydraulic connectivity is poor. Essentially what that means is one of the inverts, or possibly both of the inverts, during normal flows will actually be what they call perched, which is above the normal water flow elevation. And what that does is it creates an issue for aquatic wildlife to continue passage successfully either upstream or downstream during normal flows. That is also why these types of structures are really no longer allowed, for the most part, to be replaced. The preference environmentally is to have what they call an open bottom structure, so that a natural stream bed material very similar to the upstream and downstream conditions can be installed so that the aquatic life has an easier time. And also, as Adam mentioned, the CMP currently is not on the municipal red list, but it does have an E2 posting. So design criteria for the project, Anna will actually kick in.
Okay, so just like Rick said, there are very specific design criteria and that we have to go through. So what we use is DOT. We have a bridge design manual, highway design manual, and the standard specs that we need to follow that the DOT gives out. Then we also have some federal specification, and we have the AASHTO, it's called the LRFD. That's basically the design code that we have to follow. We also have the Manual on Uniform Traffic Control, the MUTC, and also the AASHTO geometric design. And then of course the town would like to use accelerated bridge construction to minimize the traffic during construction because of the school. So we would try that would happen during this school summer break. So the accelerated bridge construction, that's what we call ABC. So what are the existing conditions? Well, I think both Rick and Adam said a little bit what it was. So it is currently an 18-foot span that was built in '72, and the invert is corroded, and the poor hydraulic connectivity, basically, like Rick said, the invert is perched probably 18 inches, which is not good. And also, the bridge approach rails are substandards, according to the DOT. And one of the first things that we do in engineering study is the hydrologic and hydraulic study. And that will determine the flows for the various flood events, and the water surface elevations, and the stream velocities. And one of the DOT requirements is that the bridge has to have a clearance of 1 foot from the underside of the superstructure during the 50-year flood, and it also needs to pass the 100-year flood. And the existing culvert actually does meet those criteria, but the water velocities are very high, and that causes erosion and other problems for wildlife. And another one, something else that we also do in the very beginning are soil borings. So we got a geotech company to come out last summer, and they drilled 2 borings, one for each location of the abutments. And what they found was sand and gravel, basically fill, over glacial till, and on one side they did find bedrock fairly close. So in our bridge replacement study, we have, oops, I went a little bit too fast there. There we go. We always, according to the DT here, we need to look at basically do nothing or have a no-build alternative. But needless to say, that's not very good because it won't change anything, and the hydraulic capacity will be poor, and the hydraulic connectivity will not change. And eventually, it will pose a public safety issue as the culvert will continue to deteriorate. So what are the bridge options that we did look at? Well, the first bridge option was a precast concrete arch on precast concrete pedestal walls. So everything is precast in order to be able to do the ABC approach during the summer. And it does raise the costs a little bit from traditional, where you do the cast in place, but that would take too long, probably 8 to 9 months, so that would not work. So this bridge option that we call bridge option 1 is about $3.7 million. And then bridge option 2, this doesn't, this is one.
There you go.
Right, so this is the bridge option 2. That's where we have something called precast next beams on precast abutments. And these abutments would be pretty tall because we have a lot of clearance, and therefore the cost on this goes up quite significantly. So that's about $6.2 million. And then the other option was pretty much the same as option 2, but it's steel girder instead of concrete beams. And structural steel right now it's pretty expensive, so the price went up even more to about 6.7. So our recommended option would be the precast concrete arch on precast concrete pedestal walls. And you can see it a little bit here. And here you can see the corrosion on the existing one, pretty clear. This is a downstream side. Yes, this is the downstream side. You can see here from if you have high floods, it just brings all the sediments down, and it has ended up right down here. And then here on the new, this is what's called a pedestal wall. So the arch will sit on this here. And this is from the plans. And again, this is what we call a section. So here's the arch sitting on the pedestal wall. We do need to have some riprap in front to protect from erosion and scour. And then on top of that, we'll put natural stream bed material. And this is what we call an elevation, so you can see what the arch would look like. So traffic control. So the road will be closed, and there will be a temporary off-site detour road, and that will happen during the summer. We have approximately a nine-week construction period during the summer school break, and the detour would basically be around Glen Lake. It's about a 12-minute detour. And then we have the roadway alignments. And so we have a plan. And the roadway alignment will basically be the same as the existing. it's probably hard to see. There's more of a solid line, which is the proposed one, and below that is the existing one. It's hardly any difference, but we do need to have a slope and get the water off the bridge. So the low point will be down here. And also, if you do the horizontal alignment, it's almost the same too. It's shifted slightly to the north to get away, because the abutters are closer here than they are over here. So then you can see the arch right here with the wing walls. And the yellow is the roadway. And then we're going to add sidewalks to both sides. So you will be able to walk from Locust Hill to Tibbetts Hill. And part of this program, and I forgot to mention before, in the price, it's about $300,000 of non-participating costs, because the town would like to add these sidewalks all the way to Tibbetts Hill and all the way to Locust, so you can walk from Locust all the way to Tibbetts, so you can go to the school. And so the DOT has agreed to pay for the design of it, but then the town, like I said, will pay extra to construct these sidewalks and do some new paving.
The DOT, through this program, where it is so limited in funding typically, they like to, there's a fine line for them in what is included in the project extents and what is not. So the sidewalks on the upstream and downstream side, or north and south side of the project, I forget the exact linear footage, are included within the project, but then some of the additional tie-in on either end, they felt that they could not fund. So that the importance of it to the town in coordination with Adam and discussions with DOT, they agreed to pay 80% of the additional survey and for 80% of the design for those sidewalks to occur. But there is as I said, about a $300,000 cost. They couldn't do the entire extent of the sidewalks.
Your $300,000 price, is that for both sides?
Yes.
Yep, that's.
Why would you do both sides?
Excuse me?
Why would you do both sides?
The town requested it.
So the thought process on this was to include it on the bridge because with the new athletic fields on Elm Street, just around the corner, at some point the plan would be to connect sidewalk down that little stretch of Elm Street to the bridge. It's not a great spot for a crosswalk on this side of the bridge because of the somewhat blind corner and the speeds and the traffic. So the thought was carry, so you've got sidewalk for all the residential housing that's on the north side of the bridge, but on the south side continue on from the athletic fields, and then they would come down and connect in with the existing double-sided sidewalk on Center Street.
It makes no sense. The sidewalk now, if this is headed, the sidewalk now is up there by the Wilmot's house, stops there. So why wouldn't you just continue that sidewalk? There is nothing here, and there's nothing on Tibbetts Hill on this side. So if you had it up here, the crosswalk, it's the same thing, and we'd save, according to you, it's $300,000, we'd save $100,000.
So I think this one's flipped, so that left side there is the Locust.
Okay, well,
This here is Locust,
Same
and
thing.
this side here is.
Same idea.
Same thing
There's
applies,
nothing on that north side.
So there is the, with the phase 3, or maybe it's 4 at this point, on that housing that's right there on Locust. In theory, there are a fair amount of people that are, wishing to get down and walk. We don't want to send them across. One thing that we could talk about as we get further in, and kind of not to get too far ahead of the presentation, but before DOT accepts any kind of proposed design, we only have ballpark ideas of what any kind of costs are going to be. What we could do is for the non-participating sections of sidewalk, we could hold that off and include it in road plan. It'd be probably cheaper than having to meet all the funding requirements when you have a federal project. For, as we found, you start talking about adding a section of sidewalk, it wouldn't cost us $300,000 to do it outside of a federally funded project. So that may be something to think about. It makes sense from a mobilization perspective to only get in and out, but maybe not from financial. So we could always pull that piece back, allow the DOT to pay for their piece, just so the bridge itself is built. What I wouldn't want is a bigger version of what we have on Henry Bridge, where we've got a little hanging Chad sidewalk on the wrong side of the street on Henry Bridge, the small bridge now, not the big bridge, down at the bottom of the hill, where we wouldn't be sending people back and forth across Henry Bridge. We'd want to make sure we do this once, do it, get the most flexibility out of it, so.
So if you had the one crosswalk at Tibbetts Hill Road going over towards Wilmont's and the sidewalk is on that side, it would take you right over to the fields, right? That's what you're thinking?
From the
Yeah,
school.
so there's
Yep.
the other side, the north side is really
The north side is more so for the
condos up there?
the condos, people coming out of the condos and across, so they don't have to then cross over at that
We'll
corner
go
on-
crosswalk
on
right
the
there,
bridge.
put them in that same walk, so. I mean, I'm looking at the big picture, you're talking 6.2 million or 6.5 million?
It's a little less, so those were options 2 and 3. Option 1 is 3.6.
3.6,
Yeah,
3.7.
3.6.
Well, 20% of that
Yep.
is still a chunk of change,
Yep.
right?
Yeah, for sure.
And you add another 300,000 onto it.
Right. I think that's a good discussion for the board to have as we
Yeah.
get, once we hear back from DOT, hey, you can even do this at all. Make sure that we know, okay, are we going to include any non-participation work, participatory work, and if not, when do we get it into our schedule to, keep expanding?
It's a perfect example of why it's a good time for us to be here and present the engineering study for these types of discussions.
I lived on that
Exactly.
corner for 30 years, so I guess I had a little bit of.
I think probably, yes. Undoubtedly.
And, okay, I think that's it for now.
Yep.
And we also have to do environmental and cultural resource considerations. So for this job, we need a New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, New Hampshire DS, standard dredge and fill wetland permit. We also looked into the Natural Heritage Bureau, NHB, and there are no endangered or threatened species on this job, at least as of now. And the existing culvert is not considered historical. We also need to look into right-of-way and easements during the construction. There will be some impact to abutters, especially on the south side, since those houses are very close. And so the easements will be required, and QCC will develop plans and easements, and then the town will negotiate the permanent and temporary easements with the affected property owners. And this is something that we'll look into more in preliminary and final design, when we know exactly what the limits are. Whoa. That went fast. So again, the construction cost estimate for the preferred alternative would be about 3.7, and like we said, 300,000 of that was the non-par.
So that 3.6 includes the 300 for the
Yes.
sidewalks?
Yes,
So when we're looking at this, we're
Three
talking
point-
about the 80%, we've got to figure 80% on 3.3. Would that be accurate, Adam?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And maybe before Anna moves on, one thing of note is when you apply for the state aid program, the DOT kind of gives you a ballpark estimate of what that project may cost someday when it's finally constructed. I think if I'm recalling correctly, it was about $1 million project when we applied in 15. So that's what we put, and that's what we've had in CIP ever since. It's not until you get to this stage in the game now where you get better numbers, and then DOT comes in and says, yes, we either are going to agree with this estimate or not, but they, on a conference call a week or so ago, kind of admitted that they're habitually low by quite a bit, and even more so now the last few years. So it has jumped up quite a bit in the last almost decade now, but that's kind of
So your CIP costs are, at this time, are 1 million?
our low, yeah.
1 million, and you've projected 80% of that being picked up as a revenue.
Right. So we'll have this year's CIP. It's going to be a kind of a horse race. I think what we'll probably end up doing, unless DOT turns this really fast, is we'll use Quantum's estimate as best we can to generate 2024 and beyond CIP numbers. And then when we get word back from the state, we may still be in the CIP process at that point. We could update it even again. But.
So it's not unreasonable to think that we could be, instead of 200,000, we could be up to 900,000.
That probably would be a bit much, but I would probably guess 550, 600 is probably likely, yep.
Okay, and so part of the engineering studies, we are required to have a public informational meeting that we are having right now. And as soon as this meeting is done, we will complete the engineering study report and submit that to the DOT.
What's your estimated time for that to get to the DOT?
Once we submit it to the DOT, and we'll do that this week, they take about 2 months to review it and return to us. So again, just to reiterate, this will be a bridge that has a 43-foot span, and since the Conservation Commission is here, that actually does meet the New Hampshire DES stream crossing rules. And
Is it a question or?
no, just a remark, comment. Usually Conservation Commission wants to know this, and we have to reach out to you guys. And like I said, the roadway alignments are similar both in horizontal and vertical. And it's because of the ABC, this is the fastest construction time. And the precast arch is the lowest cost, both during construction and over the lifespan. There really is no maintenance that's required on it. And so our recommendations will be to complete the final design and the permits. And when that's complete, ask for the reimbursement from the DOT.
And we would be running out of the traffic going all the way back in through town?
So there's 2 potential detours. One would be around the lake, and then the other would be up Locust and into Dunbarton and back down. So neither option is great.
Neither one of them are good.
Neither one are good, which is part of the reason the DOT hasn't really pushed back very hard, I think, on the accelerated construction effort, let alone with school traffic, being down there. So on the one hand, it helps us, but it's certainly going to be a bear during construction. There may be some discussions with fire and maybe PD about replacement of anything across, on that side of the river. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's
Any thoughts of putting a temporary bridge through
quite a
there?
haul.
Is that expensive? Because there used to be, the road used to be further
Right.
down.
The interesting thing is, and they can probably speak more to this, having the survey, more familiar with the survey, the interesting thing is the town didn't retain too much land when we realigned. Most of it went back to the abutters. There is some slope, and I'm sure we have a few members that probably can speak to that too in the audience, but we didn't maintain a whole lot of land, so there'd be the temporary easement and the impacts to even discuss, but then the cost of the bridge itself, I don't know, a temp bridge,
I mean, if you do it-
500,000, 600,000.
Possibly more, because it is so buried, the existing culvert is buried so deep and there's so much cover. To do a diversion road on site, the construction
Yeah,
of
it's very
that, you
narrow
either
from
have
there.
a 100+ foot span bridge and lots of fill, and it gets very, even on the permitting side, it becomes, there are a lot of effects there. And of course, the benefit to the ABC, and I think it's obviously a good candidate for the accelerated bridge construction, because DOT, due to the additional costs with ABC, they tend to try to not go that route. But the benefit of being able to cast the footings, the stub walls, and the bridge sections in a controlled environment in a plant, and basically bid the project, award it, and have those pieces constructed and ready to go before the contractor even breaks ground, is the only way that it gives that approximate 9-week schedule an opportunity to happen.
Well, I think this board should probably take that 9 weeks off.
I have some questions regarding the recommended bridge option.
Yeah.
Is there, you showed us 2 others that were significantly more expensive. Is there any, notable, I don't know, longevity of the bridge or erosion or anything? Okay, those are just more expensive options for aesthetics? There's
No, what happens is the structure, the creek is pretty far down, so it's a very tall, so those abutments end up being very tall.
Right.
So it's a lot of precast concrete, which is expensive, whereas the arch basically it's just an arch, so you have, and it can be further down, and then you have a lot of soil. Because we do have a lot of clearance for the Q50, the 50-year flood and the 100-year flood. So we don't need all of that.
And we don't have any erosion concerns or anything
No,
like
because the
that?
span is the same.
Okay.
The span is the same.
Okay, and then you also, you know, we spoke about the partial easements and things like that. Have you all, or for this hearing in general, reached out to the residents that would be impacted, just for the information purpose?
So the abutters and then a couple extra that aren't direct abutters but close, we're all invited to the meeting tonight. We've heard from a few that couldn't make it, so we'll be meeting with them. This is kind of the beginning of that process, so here's kind of the, here's what is being considered for projects. Butters have been notified, and now that starts that discussion.
Okay,
Once the
great.
DOT accepts an initial design from the study, then we can say, okay, what are the actual footprints and actual impacts going to be, and then we'll have a dialogue with each butter as we go.
And if GTV could carve out the timeframe for this, we could maybe post it on the DPW site somewhere, just to try to do a little bit more
That's a great
outreach.
idea.
Any other questions?
We just have a brief schedule, basically if we complete the design in 2024 and then bid it in 25, but then also then let the contractor basically have a whole year to get the components. So it's all ready to go and they have everything. And hopefully then start construction in 2026. That's summer of 2026.
We obviously
So
do.
excuse me, where would the staging area be for the different components, the pieces of the puzzle? Have we identified areas for that?
Not yet.
All right.
We have not identified that yet.
So we
no.
may need easements for, temporary easements for those as well, I would assume.
The nice thing about these pieces, that's very possible. The nice thing about these pieces is they can be transported day of or day before. Many times we have queued them in parking lots overnight. Like the first couple trucks, the cranes will be queued the night before. First couple trucks that are delivering are already there the night prior. And so as they're unloading more trucks from the plant, or lots of times these plants will store the pieces. I envision, we don't control means and methods, but having seen this process a few times, I envision the contractor likely, as soon as they take control of the site, beginning to excavate either side to get down and to get to the subgrade as fast as possible to be able to set those pieces.
But the crane's got to sit somewhere.
Absolutely.
To lift and manipulate
town
the pieces.
It will
Yes.
sit on the road.
Yeah, it'll sit.
The
Yeah.
crane will be
Okay.
on the road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hold on, just one moment, do you want to add? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think Adam could attest to this, but they could easily use our yard, the DPW, to store it.
Oh,
It's
yeah, I mean,
great
we're not
for
far
it.
away.
Around the corner.
And it's within a mile, it's less
Yeah.
than a mile, so
Yeah.
I could
Great
see
point.
that being a staging area.
Yeah. And
Why don't you
then the day
state your
all
name
picking
just
up
for the
the-
record, so everybody knows who you are?
Scott is in, I'm the town engineer.
Right. Everybody knows who the hell's talking back.
Yeah, I'm not just an angry citizen.
He's also that.
This is gonna make my commute to work much longer.
So when would funding have to be approved from the town side for this project? What are we
So,
looking at?
short of any special other manna from heaven type bills that, create these non-lapsing funds that we can draw from, we would want to be funding our CIP for our 2026. Most likely, there's, I guess, a chance it could be 2025, but most likely it's going to be bid in 25, construct in 26.
So do you think for CIP this year, it would be worth considering putting part of that cost into a fund for the bridge?
Oh, it's like establish a reserve fund sort of thing?
To spread it out over the next couple of years?
Certainly could. The trick,
You would have to develop a capital reserve fund for that.
yeah.
And you can always target, we could always target unencumbered funds for that particular deal, which we've done stuff like that before.
Yeah.
But what he needs to do this year is the 2024-25 CIP, he needs that get bumped to more of a realistic number of 7, 8, or whatever you believe it's gonna be.
Right.
Hopefully by Well, that's only next month, CIP, but
I just worry about that one-time tax impact. Any other questions or comments?
So it says some pictures during construction. Oh, that went fast. There we go. Basically, construction for an arch, what it would look like, and one finished bridge.
good.
So are there any questions?
So we're not, I'm
Well,
sorry,
but-
ma'am, we're not actually having a public hearing, it's just an informational session. So if you'd like to speak with those residents out there, you definitely can.
Oh,
But we haven't set this up with the rules and regulations for actual public comment. Or if you'd like to speak at our second public comment at the end of the night.
What did you have in mind of this?
We can,
No,
I mean, we
I'm
can.
talking to you.
Yeah.
Okay. If the board would allow any, it might be good for everybody to hear if there are any answers, I don't know.
I don't know, I think we have to post it.
We have to post for a public hearing.
So usually the thing that triggers the posting is if what you're doing requires a publicly posted hearing rather. This doesn't require any statutory posting, so that's why we didn't do a traditional, hey, this is a public hearing session. This is just a meeting, but the abutters are here, so if you wanted to take questions, you certainly could. There's nothing stopping you from doing that.
Danielle?
Adam, this was published in advance, right?
Yep.
The info session was published in the newspaper as well?
It was,
Yeah.
fully posted, okay. Okay.
I mean,
Yeah, we can do-
I guess we have to be careful or cautious of what questions we're taking, and we can't talk about eminent domain or public takings or
No.
anything like that.
for us,
And all I can do is answer some construction questions, that would have to eliminate.
well, for us, I was more meaning in terms of our presentation, because it's a public informational meeting, and usually when we have them for the public, we do allow them to ask questions to us.
That's fine, as long as it's directed towards
Yeah,
our presentation and not
yes,
to
that's what
the,
I meant.
any
Yes,
legal
yes, of course.
ramifications that could come up in the future.
No,
Would that be,
no, so this is questions for QCC.
So,
Yep.
excuse me, sir, if you'd like to come up and just state your name and your address for the record.
I'll give you the hot seat.
Thanks so much.
Sure, my name's Carl McGibbon. We're in a butter on Tibbetts Hill Road. The one question I did have was, do you plan, because you can look at the drawings and kind of get a feel for it, but would you plan at some time having like an on-site walk around to say, this is where we're actually, because I think the current culvert's, 18 feet, and I think we're going up to like 43. So it's gonna, this way, it's gonna grow, just so abutters, the people that may have some impact to views and those types of things, could actually just walk around and say, yeah, this is on the design, this is where this is where that is, this is where that is.
Usually we do let the town handle the easements. I mean, I guess if Adam wanted us to, we could come out. It's probably something more that Adam would do.
I'm not even concerned about, an easement, more of just kind of like, hey, just get on site, walk around and say, this is what the plan looks like in real life, not just on a
Yeah, it
piece
is,
of paper,
it's a hard thing to
That's all I'm
I
saying.
think we can get pretty close with some stakes, so we can talk to you offline, Scott, and I
Sure
can meet up
thing.
with you on site.
You got my card the other day.
I did, yeah.
Right.
Okay,
And
yeah, that was
also, Adam, that's potentially another way that we could utilize GTV to do like a site walkthrough to explain that, just to have a video if that's helpful.
Thanks.
Thank you for that, sir.
Okay. Any other questions?
well, thank you, guys.
Yeah,
Thank you very
coming.
much for your time, we appreciate it.
And if anybody was here for the bridge, if you can sign your name, otherwise, yeah, we'll do.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
All right, Adam, you still have a few more items? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. So, item number one, we advertised for bids for a new pavement markings contractor. They were, a couple meetings ago, we had talked about some of our expiring bids. The kids get to be famous.
I don't know if you want to.
That's all right. That's my safe for work back down there, right? So our contractors, sorry, I'll see if I'm walking you down.
Oh, that's okay.
It's a double click, yeah. There you go, one more.
Got it.
Where are we at?
Distracted every
It was right behind
Right behind the Clark Farm.
the maps and
At the
the
beginning.
typographical maps.
So they, pavement markings contractor was the only of those expiring contracts that wasn't able to hold their increase to the cap that the board had set of 10%. So we went back out to
I'm
bid.
so sorry, I'm so sorry.
Yeah, we're gonna
We
take
just take a
this
moment.
outside.
Yeah,
I give you that.
yeah, we can take
I'll
it.
find it.
Okay, it's back at the front, maybe
Yeah,
behind
I'll
the
find it.
RSA.
Throw McGibbon out of here.
Thank you. Have a good night.
I thought they might, that's one of my best friends.
You good?
Good to go? Okay. So our pavement markings contractor was not able to cap their increase to extend their contract. So we went out to bid. We received 3 timely bids. Markings Incorporated, Pro Finish Lines Corp., and K5 Corp. And I believe the second page of this section has got the bid tab of the big ticket items from our pavement markings. So we do long lines, so our yellow center lines, and on some streets, our higher volume roads, we do white fog lines or edge lines. We also have a fair number of more detail work in town that traditionally the town has tried to accomplish as much of as we can in-house, crosswalks, stop bars, stencils, that sort of thing, parking lot. It is a labor-intensive process, and where we're short on labor, last year we ended up contracting out about 50% of our detail work, and I think we're probably going to be not in much better position this year. So we had included some of this detail work on the bid as well, so we just have those numbers.
Adam, on the bid sheet for Markings Inc.,
Yes.
is that a typo or are they just significantly less?
So what happened is some vendors carry a beyond 1 penny.
Okay.
So there's so many feet of long lines in particular that they actually will say, so for example, Pro Lines Finish said for a single yellow line, which we don't really have much of, but single white fog line, it will cost you 8.8 cents per foot.
Okay.
So they carry that extra digit, so
Thank you.
they have one. It is a little weird, isn't it? So, let's see, so of those 3, K5 Corp was the low bidder for all 3 of our long line work, and also on the other detail work, they were significantly lower than the others. So I would like to recommend that we award. They also were, 2 of the bidders included a year 2 and a year 3 price if we wanted to do a 3-year, which we'd done previously, to lock that in. And their 3-year price was even lower than one of them for year 1. So I think it's probably a good idea to lock in if we can. So with the board's permission tonight, I'd like to recommend motion to award the 23 through 2025 pavement markings contract to K5 Corporation of Rockland, Mass.
Yes.
You have any feedback from other people? Have you checked out on them, see how they do, or?
So the quality of the work's been good. They've actually changed hands. We've used them previously. Highway Safety Systems was the name of the company. I do have, they were not awarded. They bid on our previous 3-year contract and were not awarded, even though they were low bidder. There was a non-public item that I believe we could take again in non-public. It would still qualify if you'd like to discuss a little bit more.
I think I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
And that won't happen again?
I think they are successfully, we're going on 4 years now since that incident happened, I guess. It wasn't here in town, if anybody's not wondering. We've made everybody curious about what this is all about, but it was something that happened in another community outside of working hours with this company. I think they've been able to do the job the last few years. So.
Adam, my question is about availability for when we need them. Are they gonna be able to accommodate, like, when schedule? They're not pushing people?
They're all pretty good. The trick is to make sure that you have as much ready when you get that first visit of the year. Typically, the things that we end up having to make up for are if we have a main road that's repaved in June, for example, we sometimes won't stripe it. If they're coming to stripe in May, we'll hold off, and then we've got to get them back for those specialty visits. So if we have enough of the paving projects done this year early, we're going to have some work on Back Mountain and Mountain, for example. I think Back Mountain will be done, but Mountain Road might not. So there's always a little bit of, anyway, long way of saying there's always a little bit of a trick getting them back for the second visit, but I think we'll be able to have enough work for them to make it worth their while.
Okay, any other questions?
No, I make a motion to award the 2023 to 2025 pavement markings contract to K5 Corporation of Rockland, Massachusetts.
Second.
Motion by Collis, second by Pete. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Abstain, opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Okay, thank you. And the second item I have
Can I just ask
tonight,
a quick question? What is the next piece behind it?
The affidavit?
yes, sorry, I should have, it wasn't necessarily an inconsistency. All three bids were timely, but one of the bids didn't make it into the envelope for the opening, so it wasn't opened at the same time as the first two, but it had arrived to Town Hall on time, was properly time-stamped. So Executive Secretary wanted to make sure she covered all bases, so she included an affidavit.
I just
for you.
wasn't, it doesn't really, didn't
Sorry
really
about that. Yeah.
point anything out, so I just asked her. You okay?
Yes. All right, hopefully.
Okay, second item tonight. We've got a front-end loader in this year's CIP. We have $250,000 budgeted for a replacement of a 2008 John Deere loader. Under our town's purchasing policy, we do have the ability to utilize either state, federal, or cooperative purchasing contracts. I talked to Derek a little bit on this one. Because it's so large, I think it still makes sense to come to the board for, I think fire does it for their apparatus, even if they purchase under WISCA or NASPO. You start talking $250,000, I just feel weird about.
Right.
Even though it says it's okay, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. So the request tonight is going to be slightly different. As of Friday, when the packets were being created, I didn't have the final spec, the final quote on the final spec back from John Deere. So what was in the packet is a little different. Didn't include a plow. It did include a set of forks that we are not purchasing, and didn't include a radar alert system for the.
It didn't?
It did not. So.
Because this says the loader and the plow with town specifications.
Let's see. The memo or the packet.
Purchase of the
attachments?
2008 memo.
Okay, so in the memo,
Financial impact, the budgeted amount of this loader was $250,000. The cost of the loader and plow with the town specifications is expected to be approximately $240,000.
Yep. So I was pretty close. I think the third attachment that you have for this from United Construction and Forestry. Sorry, maybe I didn't even mention this. So the request tonight is to purchase under the Sourcewell Cooperative Purchasing Agreement. And Sourcewell is a nationwide organization that does a lot of these publicly bid process for heavy equipment, all sorts of things. The John Deere dealer, so John Deere has an agreement with Sourcewell that they provide 41% discount on this type of loader from their list price. And United Construction and Forestry in Pembroke is the state John Deere heavy equipment dealer. So if you look on a couple pages after that memo, you'll pass the Sourcewell information, you'll see a quote from United Construction and Forestry. This is the quote that I gave Danielle because it was the most recent I had, but it didn't reflect the final spec. So it didn't include the plow, it didn't include the taking the forks off, and it did not include the proximity alert system that tells you if somebody or something is behind you or on the side of you. So the final number from United Construction is 244,221. So
244?
244,221.
221.
And that
And that includes plow,
that includes a 12-foot plow.
proximity, and forks.
And no forks. We
No forks.
Took the forks off. That was part of their base-off bid. The one piece, or a piece of that United Construction Forestry packet edition that is of interest, it shows the suggested list price of that loader is $346,000, so it is quite a deal to purchase under that cooperative agreement.
And what happens with our old one?
So our recommendation would be to auction it off. We could certainly ask them if they're interested in kind of a trade-in allowance or buying it from us, but I think with our new process, either way, it won't change the award amount will be the award because of gross purchase. So it's up to the board. I think we'd probably, based on the unofficial reaction that they had after seeing our loader, I think we'd probably be better off selling it either at auction or at on municipal.
So I'll make a motion to approve the purchase, $244,221 for a new loader with a plow and the proximity equipment.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Mark. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you.
So what you're saying is kicking the tires didn't go well.
It was we'll take it off your hands.
My allergies it's all gone here. It's kicking my butt.
You
All right.
done?
Thank you, yes.
And so now we're up to new business.
We still have one item.
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay, yep.
New business, you're correct.
Oh, okay.
I was gonna say, what the hell is she talking
I know,
about?
it's like we did the appointment.
I had my
So you want to start with the dam?
Yep.
Okay, go ahead.
This past Thursday, 4 members of the select board met with members from the town hall. Danielle was there, Derek was there, Joanne Duffy was there, Adam was there, along with 6 or 7 members from the state. 6 members from the state. And the discussion was, we originally thought the discussion was trying to negotiate something with the developer of the Hadley Falls and the state to bring that dam up to snuff and so they could generate power out of it. Well, the state kind of dropped the bomb on us and said, no, we're going to decommission that. We're going to notify FERC that we're no longer going to carry the license on that dam, and we're going to more or less abandon it. Well, that means that the removal of the Hadley Falls Dam is what they're recommending. So this board has drafted a letter to go to the governor and all of our state reps requesting some help in not losing that dam. But when I'm saying losing the dam, they're talking about removing the dam. In fact, Andy was here from Piscataquag River Authority. What's Piscataquag? Go ahead, Andy.
Local Advisory Committee.
Yeah. And he participated, and it looks like, without some pretty much a miracle, that we may lose that bridge.
Dam.
I'm sorry, that dam. But not only that, they also said that Kelly's Falls Dam down in Manchester and the Glen Lake Dam are also in danger. So we got a real crisis on our hands, and we're on top of it, and we're sending out, like I said, this board is sending a letter out tonight, and it'll go to the governor looking for help. I think we're probably going to have to even get our senators involved and write to.
A draft has been provided for you tonight that includes the information that we've gathered from the departments in town. So Derek drafted the letter, and then we included information from DPW and planning and fire department as well regarding points of interest to include. And at the end of the letter, you see a list of all of the individuals we were planning to CC via email to ensure that we have all the state reps as well as our federal representatives, the executive counselor and commissioner copied on the correspondence to the governor.
Madam Chair, do you think I should read this into the record?
We can read it into the record, but one thing I just want to note first that, and you can expand or anyone can expand on this, that the state expressed that they had gone through all of the different funding options and sort of expended that. And we, as the town, don't have any say really on the licensing, which is owned by the state. So
Right.
we're going to put effort into trying to figure something out, but it's, go ahead and read it in, and then I'll kind of explain.
This letter is directed to Governor Sununu. The Goffstown Select Board is requesting you direct Commissioner Robert Scott, New Hampshire Department of Environmental Services, to delay notification to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission of the state's intention to surrender the state's license of the Hadley Falls Dam. Hadley Falls Dam was constructed in 1921, and the state of New Hampshire took ownership in 1968. The mid-'80s, Hadley Falls Dam began producing hydroelectric power in partnership between the New Hampshire Water Resources Board and Hydrodynamics Corporation, later Goffstown Hydro Corp. In 2007, Goffstown Hydro Corp ceased hydroelectric operations at the location. In 2013, New Hampshire DES became the sole licensee of the Hadley Falls project, number 537-000, and indicated to the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is FERC, that the state would seek other hydro operators. The state continues to seek operators of the Hadley Falls Dam over the last decade, while the town considered redevelopment of the mill project adjacent to the property. In July 2019, the Goffstown Planning Board approved conversion of the existing mill building and construction of 2 additional buildings to construct 99 residential units. In 2021, SMC Management Corporation took over the project. In 2022, site remediation and construction on the project began. As of today, the site is 40% complete and will create 99 residential units in the greater Manchester area. Throughout SMC's ownership of the project, negotiations have been ongoing between SMC and New Hampshire DES for the Hadley Falls lease to restore hydroelectric power at this location. In the late 2022, SMC informed the town that the lease negotiations were not progressing. In correspondence between New Hampshire DES and FERC, dated 1/23/2023, and New Hampshire DES indicated efforts to negotiate a new lease had failed to come to acceptable terms, and New Hampshire DES was considering surrendering the Hadley Falls license. FERC sent correspondence on 3/28/23 advising New Hampshire DES of an overdue plan and schedule to restore project operation in Hadley Falls, and gave New Hampshire DES 60 days until 5/27/23 for New Hampshire DES to provide a detailed plan and schedule for either 1, restoring the project operation, or 2, surrendering the project license. A meeting was scheduled for the representatives of Town of Goffstown, New Hampshire DES, SMC Corporation, and other stakeholders on 4/20 to discuss the current disposition of the Hadley Falls Dam. That's the meeting I referred to earlier, which we had last Thursday. At the 4/20/23 meeting, DES advised the town, SMC, and other stakeholders that New Hampshire DES decided to surrender the project license and begin the process of removing Hadley Falls Dam. This decision was a surprise to all in attendance, as 2023 correspondence from New Hampshire DES to FERC indicated surrendering the license was the only consideration. Additionally, those in attendance were informed that 2 other state-owned dams on the Scottiqua River, Gregg Falls Dam and Kelly Falls Dam, were classified as high-hazard state-owned dams and had issues that require resolution. FERC requirement for fish passage at the Kelly Falls Dam has moved the current hydropower operator, and LISI, to issue an application to surrender their license in 2024 and leave the site. If another hydroelectric operator cannot be found by New Hampshire DES, a similar process of license surrender and dam removal modification may need to be undertaken. Future fish passages and FERC requirements are likely also to occur at Gregg Falls Dam, impacting the existing hydroelectric operation at this location. At the conclusion of this meeting, New Hampshire DES Assistant Commissioner Mark Sanborn advised the stakeholders that New Hampshire DES would delay sending correspondence to FERC surrendering the Hadley Falls license until 5/5/23. Despite FERC's 3/28/23 letter giving them 60 days. The Hadley Falls Dam, as well as the Kelly Falls Dam and Greg Falls Dam, have a huge impact on property owners, residents, and businesses in Goffstown. The Hadley Falls Dam is the site of the Goffstown's annual Pumpkin Regatta. This annual event brings thousands of visitors to the historic village. The Hadley Falls Dam impoundment is also used by the Goffstown Fire Department as a water supply for fire protection during large-scale events and important training programs. The addition of 99 residential units on the adjacent lot will make the fire protection water access created by the dam that much more important. The Greg Falls Dam impoundment creates Glen Lake, a 137-acre lake with hydropower and numerous outdoor recreational activities, including boating, swimming, and fishing. The Kelly's Falls Dam impound creates Namaski Lake, a 194-acre lake with hundreds of lakefront properties in both Goffstown and Manchester. Modifications to these impoundments should weigh the environmental impacts and New Hampshire DES budget considerations that get the adverse impact to Goffstown property owners, residents, and businesses. The Goffstown Select Board is requesting you direct Commissioner Robert Scott, New Hampshire Environmental Services, to delay notification to FERC, Energy Regulatory Commission, and state intention to surrender the state's license of the Hadley Falls Dam. A minimum we are requesting is you direct NEHDS to take advantage of full 60-day provided by FERC to respond. Ideally, we are requesting you direct NEDS, New Hampshire DES, to request from FERC a 6-month or year extension to respond. We would also like NHDES, the town, and other stakeholders to carefully weigh all options. Considering the very recent announcement and solicitation of $550 million in new funding available for hydroelectric infrastructure maintenance and enhancement as part of the bipartisan infrastructure law, it would be prudent to see if the dam is a candidate for such funding. If ownership is transferred from the state of New Hampshire before surrendering the FERC license. Thank you for considering and insistence on this matter, and sincerely, the Goffstown Select Board. This letter is going to Senator Keith Murphy, Representative Joe Alexander, Representative Judy Lanza, Representative Fred Plett, Representative Sheila Seidel, Representative Travis Cochran, Representative Lisa Mazer, Senator Jean Shaheen, Senator Maggie Hassan, Representative Ann McLean Custer, Representative Chris Pappas, Theodore Gatsias, Executive Counselor, and Taylor Caswell, Commissioner of the BEA.
Thank you for doing that. I apologize for my coughing fit. My allergies are really getting to me, but I don't think I could have made it through that, so.
So I think the big thing is we're not sitting on our hands, and I think we're trying to do something.
We're trying,
And
yeah.
it's not gonna happen overnight, it's, what was the 2026 maybe or something that could actually happen somewhere?
Right. Yeah, that's what the talk was. We did get, Representative Alexander did get the state and DES to not notify FERC for the full 60 days, but there's nothing after that.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to provide more details to the public as we know, but we're doing what we can within our power to try and protect.
Well, when you're talking about the state and feds, we don't have a whole lot of power.
Sending a letter, that's
Yeah.
what we're doing, that's within. So,
Assistant Commissioner Sanborn made it eminently clear that they had exhausted all options available to them to find somebody to take over the lease, and they've been unsuccessful.
And funding,
and funded,
Yeah.
yeah.
and they couldn't find any funding.
Right.
So do
And
we,
even in their budget, at current budget, they don't have the funding.
would you like a motion, Danielle? to-
Yes, please. Unless there's any adjustments.
Make a motion that we send the letter that I just read
Second?
Is it our signatures on that?
to all the people that are listed.
Yeah, okay. Motion by Peter, seconded by Collis. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.
I'll prepare the final copy and send that out to the board for signatures electronically so that we can get the letter out immediately.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have then additional items to new business. The pay week change.
I would like to, for us to look at changing our pay week to every 2 weeks instead of weekly.
So currently, and Danielle, please correct me if I'm wrong, currently, the town pays on a weekly basis versus a bi-weekly basis,
That's correct.
which creates, different types of pay processes on the back end that we have to manage at Town Hall. And the select board would like to start the process, or we're gonna be recommending that we start the process through the Department of Labor and the state to change our pay weeks to bi-weekly. Anything else to add to that?
Nope,
Daniel?
that's,
Anyone else?
there's a considerable savings if we do that.
Yep, it changes the management level, but the actual processing of payroll will be bi-weekly instead of weekly, so it will free up some time, hopefully.
So that was I would like to make that motion.
Second.
Seconded by Jim.
Any comments, concerns?
No, I think it's pretty intuitive. If you're only doing it once every 2 weeks as opposed to once every week, there should be considerable savings, just in administrative costs.
And if you give people enough warning, like we just changed at my company that I work for, we changed the first of the year, but we had like 2 months warning that it was coming up, so.
So, yeah, do you want to authorize the town administrator
Sure.
to submit that paperwork? Danielle, did you have something to add?
I was just gonna ask to make sure that if we get the approval from the Department of Labor, do you want us to just begin the process to notify the departments?
Well, I would bring it to us first to say,
Okay.
okay, we got the approval, and we'll set up a date.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Would
we
that work?
have, we have to give pretty I'm sure they'll tell us, it's like
I believe the
60
paperwork actually
days.
gives
The
us a
date.
requirement to state when we're planning to change over.
Okay.
But once we get that paperwork drafted, we can bring it back to the board if we need that information.
Any questions, concerns?
Great.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great, and then we have the IT job description update.
So, I'll pass around for you. The IT systems administrator is currently a posted position, as you know. We received a request to update the job description. So what you have before you is just bringing the job description up to date to the current standards of what the position is actually doing. Making sure we have the correct terminology in the job description, that it correctly reflects what that position is doing at this time. So there's no changes to what's being done in the position now. I just wanted to make sure that we got the most up-to-date version in front of you, so that if it is approved, we can go ahead and use that in our search and with the candidates.
And this was updated by Brian based on what the posting should actually look like.
Yeah, based on the current operations within our structure. And Brian is here this evening if the board has any specific questions.
Brian, would you mind just giving us a quick, Cliff Notes version of the updates in here? Thank you. So my first question with the amount of changes in here, I understand the role's not changing, this is just updating the job description to match the actual work.
Can he just say his name for the?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Brian Wright, Information Systems Director, Town of Goffstown.
Thank you. Are
Hi.
these moving on to another job description to balance what we're
That
taking
job
off of here?
description, the job description that we have for that position was last changed in
2016.
2016, when that position was the top position in our office. That's since changed, the job description hasn't changed, so some of those duties are now my duties as the director. So that's really a lot of the changes, and some of the technology and terms have also changed, so we tried to freshen that up so that when we advertise it, it sounds more current.
This used to be you?
Yes.
Okay.
Does anyone have any questions?
Well, some of the stuff that's crossed out, is that some of the stuff that you've taken over or no longer necessary?
Some of it I've taken over, some of it is either no longer necessary or we just do it differently now, so I worded it differently. So instead of trying to mash up that whole sentence, I just kind of added current terminology. It's really not changing the position at all. It's all the same stuff. It's just updated verbiage.
So that hasn't been changed since 6 or 7 years ago, huh?
Correct.
It's a lifetime in IT.
Yes, a lot's changed since then.
Does anyone have any questions?
I make a motion that we accept the IT administrator's new job description and go out for the position, advertise for the position.
Second.
Thank you. Motion by Peter, second by Mark. Questions, concerns? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. And then we have the SNHU tuition partnership, which there is at the back of the packet.
Madam Chair, one last comment on that. We do have other job descriptions within the IT department that we wanted to update, but we'll be bringing those forward at a later time for each of those positions.
Okay, great.
The SNHU partnership, this was something that Derek had come across and requested more information about from SNHU. This is an opportunity for the town to partner with them to offer a 10% tuition reduction for employees and their families if they were to take classes online. So it's specific to online courses. You see there's some information below that indicates how that would work. You would bring your online course cost to $864 for undergraduate or $1,692 per course for the graduate program. Currently, the town's personnel plan does offer a tuition reimbursement for 50% of tuition and books for the approved courses. But it does not require any SOUs, or MOUs or LOUs, so there's no commitment. We don't have to send a certain number of people every year or anything else. I mean, it does extend to those families as well, so families with students or anyone in the household who would be willing to attend or looking to attend could do that at a reduced cost.
No, there's no reimbursement from the town on these plans?
No.
They're doing the same thing at Dunkin' Donuts now. I don't know if you see the sign over there.
Yeah, they do it at Elliott. Discounts. I do have a question. This says employer partnership program.
Yes.
Obviously, we wouldn't offer tuition reimbursement to people who are elected to town boards, but would they be eligible to participate in the discount?
It says specifically to the employees and their families. I would have to check with the program director if it would extend to elected officials.
I was just curious, but that would be nice,
yeah.
I guess, if they could.
Yeah, that's a
also
great question. I'll
participate.
follow up on that. Having the town become an employer partner, it just means that our name will appear on the list. So if somebody's signing up for courses, they'd be able to pick the town of Goffstown as their employer, and then they have to prove that connection to be eligible. So they'd have to explain, you know, are they an employee, are they a family member of an employee, something like that.
Great. Take a motion?
Motion to participate in the Southern New Hampshire University Employer Partnership Program to provide 10% tuition reduction to employees and their families.
Second.
Motion by Pete, seconded by Jim. Any questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Great. I think that's it for new business. Yes, new business.
Nothing on the first
Action.
one. And that should say chair now, not vice chair.
Yeah, well, we should just remove it anyways.
Thank you.
No, it's good to keep up there. Okay, the pedestrian bridge, Village Pedestrian Bridge Committee, any update on that, Collis?
No, we're meeting again on Tuesday.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then the demolition of One North Mast?
Yes, Roger has met with 3 different companies. We have 1 quote that's been returned, and we have 2 that are expected in this week.
Oh, great, okay, so we can
Hopefully move
hopefully,
forward on that.
next meeting?
make a
Okay,
decision.
great. Grants, any updates on either of our grants?
No, I don't have any updates on the grants at this time. They're both just awaiting to see if we're awarded.
Okay. And hopefully some DPW vehicles back this week? Hopefully.
So,
Yeah, I've got some estimates there from the mechanic, Zeb. He went through each one with me to give an update as far as when we're expecting it back. The one that's kind of up in the air is the New Hampshire Peterbilt. That one, it all depends on whether or not that diesel particulate filter is available or not. So he's hoping we'll have it back by 5/5, but if they need those parts to be shipped in, it may take longer.
That's another smog type item that they made everybody get, and now they can't get parts for them.
Yeah.
And they've been nothing but problems.
That's all I
Okay.
have this evening.
Does anyone else have anything for new or old business?
Motion, we're going to non-public under RSA 90.
Oh, wait, hold on one second, yep. We'll do our final public comment. Is anyone here who would like to speak at public comment? Seeing none, we'll close public comment.
Make a motion to go in non-public RSA 91-A:3, 2A, promotion and discipline, C, adversely affect the reputation of any other person other than a member of the board, and D, land.
Second.
Motion by Pete, second by Jim.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Okay, we're going to end the public portion of our meeting. So thank you, everyone.